Hey, what's going on, everybody on YouTube? Steve here with Raiken Profit, coming back to you with another video. And in today's video, I'm super excited and pumped up to share with you a Google Hangout video that I just did with my main man, Jamison Phillippi of the Green Room, and the two awesome guys over at the AM PM podcast. So we just recorded a live Google Hangout. Well, it wasn't live, it was private, but we recorded a Google Hangout that was about an hour and a half. And we talked about a lot of amazing topics from, sourcing at garage sales, negotiating, retail arbitrage, private label. And we talked about a lot of stuff that I really think could be able to help you out. So definitely check out the video. I'm going to share that with you in about a minute from now. But also I wanted to say, I've been learning a ton from Manny and Guillermo over at the AM PM podcast regarding private label and Amazon FBA. So I do want to share with you their information. So check the link below in the description. You can find out how to listen to their podcast and subscribe. But really, without further ado, I want to share with you this video. Check it out, watch it in full. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there, and I really think it's going to be able to help you out. So let's get into the video, and I hope you love it.
Something special today. There's four of us in this hangout, and it's Steve Raiken from Raiken Profit. We had Jamison Phillippi, and then Guillermo Puyol and myself from AMPM Podcast. And we're going to be doing a just kind of a hangout, just a freestyle chat about retail arbitrage, private label, anything related to Amazon. I think we're going to be jumping back and forth. And I'm going to say it right now, I'm not a retail arbitrage expert. We've got two guys that are, and actually maybe even three. Guillermo says he's not, but he's going to be leading this thing. And I think you got some good questions to ask these guys. So before we get started, though, Jamison and Steve, would you guys like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Go ahead, Steve. Sure. Yeah, I'll get started. What's going on, everybody? First off, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it. My name's Steve Raiken, and I'm 28 years old from Connecticut. Quit my job at the restaurant about 3 years ago. Was working in, various restaurants, pizzerias, and whatnot, and finally stumbled across making money online. Started flipping bikes on Craigslist, moved on to eBay, ended up starting a YouTube channel, which I now have about 700 videos, I think, and eventually moved on to Amazon FBA, where I'm doing a lot of retail arbitrage, sourcing a lot from garage sales, thrift stores, pawn shops, and I'm actually getting into private label, which is really exciting because I've been learning a lot from Guillermo and Manny, and I've actually just got confirmation that my first sample is on the way from Hong Kong, so that's super, super exciting. But yeah, been doing this for about 3 years, haven't had an official job in 3 years, and love every minute of being an entrepreneur and always learning new things, and just super pumped up for this podcast with all you guys and my main man, Jamison. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it off to Jamison.
Cool.
Hey, what's up, guys? Jamison Phillippi here. I'm 33 from St. Paul, Minnesota. I've been, I actually started doing this. I got fired for my job like 5 years ago. I was a waiter at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I got fired for texting. And after I got fired, I was kind of like, I kind of drifted for a little bit. But after that, I was just kind of like, I don't want to work for anybody else ever again. And I pretty much got into reselling eBay, and then I stumbled upon Steve and bought his clothing book, which opened the door to other things, and which kind of led me down this direction where I'm at now. I started retail arbitrage with $200 in my pocket, and I'm on pace. That was a year and a half ago, and I'm on pace this year to do about $500,000 in sales this year, just strictly RA, with no private label. I'm in the process of ordering my samples right now, in talks with China right now to get a few samples. And I just been driving around the country, sourcing, doing retail arbitrage and Periscope along the way. Loving every minute of it.
Awesome. That's amazing, huh? 250K from retail arbitrage. That shows some real hustle, huh? I don't think that's something a lot of people can claim. Retail arbitrage, that kind of sales.
Yeah, definitely.
As a matter of fact, You were just, Jamison, you just got in just a couple minutes ago because you were out hunting for those. I think you just said you had a really awesome score.
Yeah. I actually went out just to get a juice this morning. I juice at Whole Foods every morning, and there was a Rite Aid next door. And I was like, I'll just pop in real quick because I got a 20% off card or whatever. And they had 100 clearance video games in there, and I picked up 25 of them. I only made $400 profit easy. And then I just came back. So it's a nice little score, start the day off.
Nice. So I know that everybody on your channels, on the retail arbitrage side, they know exactly what retail arbitrage is. Guy, I think some of the people on our side might not know what RA is. And I guess a real quick, few sentences, you guys want to talk about exactly what it is and the difference between that and private label?
Yeah, Jamison, you want to take that one?
Yeah, retail arbitrage basically is like where you go to Target, Walmart, and other various big box stores, and you pick up, like we'll say toys, for example, scan them with the Amazon seller app, and then you send them into Amazon, and Amazon takes care of everything. They sell it, they ship it, they deal with customer complaints, returns, any hassle the customer has. Anytime you get a customer message, like a complaint of any sort, just send them to Amazon. Amazon takes care of everything. And pretty much you don't have to hold any inventory on hand, and you pretty much just collect your payment every 2 weeks. I guess in a nutshell, I guess that's what RA is, I guess.
And that's the retail side of things too. I know both of us, we do a lot of sourcing from thrift stores and garage sales and pawn shops, and it's pretty similar to retail arbitrage. The only difference is usually with retail arbitrage, you could pick up multiple quantities of an item, whereas like when I go into a pawn shop to buy something, typically I'm buying like a one-off item. And I guess that's, to get into it a little sooner, that's one of the downsides to doing what we do because, especially from, the pawn shop side, the thrift store side, garage sale side, we have to go out there actively and hustle, which is nothing wrong with that. We have to go out there and actively hustle to find that item. But once we sell it, it's gone and we have to go back out again to find another one.
Yeah. When I was doing retail arbitrage, to me, that was one of the exciting parts because if I went to garage sales or to the thrift shop, it was almost like a treasure hunt. It was always looking for that one treasure, that cool thing that I've never seen before, and like, oh my gosh, this looks so cool. But then I got really good at buying, and I was never listing. So I was telling you, Steve, that I have a inventory room full of stuff that I'm sure is worth a few $1,000s, and I just haven't listed the stuff. So it's a lot of work, a lot of hustling, and finding the next thing. There's a lot of people that do retail arbitrage with replenishables. Do you guys do any kind of replenishables?
I don't have many of them. I've got a few kind of items that I'm on the lookout for that I replenish. But I think Jamison might have more than I do.
I've got probably 20 to 30 replens, and they vary in every single category, like baby items, like laundry detergents, clothing, toys. It's all over the board. I like to spread it around. I actually read online that I'm trying to get my replens up to make a good income just off your replens. If you have 80 replens, you could actually make a living off of that, just doing those 80 replens. So that's my goal, is to get up to 80 replens, and I'm building that every day, pretty much just learning and researching new products that I can go. And I just go down like a Walmart aisle and just scan all the grocery items, because I think those are the best replens in my opinion to go after.
And we talked about that before, Jamison. I remember how you told me how you had a notebook and you would go all around the Walmarts and Targets and you would literally scan through all the different items. And when you found an item that had potential, you'd write it down in your notebook. And if it sold, you'd literally go back and just scroll through your notebook and find that item again, which was a really good tip you gave me. So for the people listening, if you're looking to make some cash doing the replens and the arbitrage, make sure to take note of the items that are selling so you don't forget about it, because it's a little overwhelming. There's so many products that are out there. You've really got to stay organized in terms of what you want to be on the lookout for, or else you could get sidetracked quite easily.
So guys, I have a question then. If for a private label, when I'm actually sourcing new things, I'm looking for something that when I sell it after costs, I can make at least $10 or 25% of whatever I'm selling it for, whichever is greater. I don't always do that, but that's kind of like the baseline that I start with. With retail arbitrage, how do you factor in profit? How does that work? Where do you guys normally fall? I mean, how do you know when something is worth picking up at at a store?
Me and Steve, I both use the Amazon seller app to scan the items, and then it'll pop up with what the going rate is for that item. I generally like to stick with 50% margins, and I go for like, say for toys example, I go for like under 50K in toys, which is a pretty quick flip. You'll probably get the money back within 2 weeks. So I like to flip my stuff every 2 to 3 weeks. Burn and turn is like my motto that I live by for when I go for stuff.
Yeah, when you're using the Amazon Seller app, which is the free app that we use, when we scan an item, you'll see all the different prices and whatnot. So let's say, for example, you pick up a toy that's selling for $30. It'll actually give you how much you'll get back after fees. So let's just say Amazon takes $7 in fees. So now you're down to $23. And you could actually put in shipping costs and different various things into the settings to shoot out what you'll get back after the fees and all. So say it's $7 in fees and it's selling for $30. Now you're down to $23. Now you have to factor in how much your buy cost is. So if the buy cost is $3, now you've got $20 left. So it's going to vary based on your risk tolerance and what you're looking to put out in terms of how much you want to spend to get back. But yeah, I'm usually looking at around a 50% to 100% ROI. It really depends though. I mean, I sell a lot of different items from books to video games to new in the box items to electronics. So it's really going to vary based on the item. Like for example, electronics, usually I'm looking for well over 100% return on investment, just because they're a little riskier in terms of returns and just issues and just a lot of different factors. So I think it really depends based on the actual product that the person's looking to buy and their risk tolerance.
Okay, got it. Is there a dollar limit, like a minimum? Like you say, you know what, I'll get 100% return on this investment, but it's only $4. I mean, do you even deal with that, or do you always stick to a certain price point?
Well, they're going to take out their minimum fee. So I think if you sell anything for less than like $5 or $6, I don't think you're going to get much back. What are your thoughts on that, Jamison?
No, that's not what I meant. I meant, for example, after the fees, if you're only making $5 after everything's said and done, is that something worth picking up, or are you looking for stuff where you can make, a lot more than that?
Yeah,
I do it. I have no problem taking that.
Yeah, okay. I'll do it all day long as well, especially for books, because I do a lot of books as well. I mean, books are super simple. I mean, you just slap a label on it and you send it in. There's really no prep or anything. So, even there'll be times where, I'll scan a book. If I pay $1 and I make $3 profit, I'll do it because I know if I could get 30 or 40 of them at a place, that's $100, $150 profit, and it's only going to take me 20 or 30 minutes to send them off through my third-party platform software that I use, Inventory Lab. So it really depends based on the item. Now, if it's a bigger item where it's going to take a lot of prep, bubble wrap, stretch wrapping it, putting it into another box and all that, I'm not gonna waste my time for a $5 profit, because you got to weigh out what your time is worth. So for the people listening, I mean, I know a lot of folks that are listening to your podcast, they're into private label. But one of the real big benefits to the retail arbitrage is you can get quick cash. You could get the cash to be able to save up for that private label venture and whatnot. And just based on the product you're going into, you can make some really quick cash and save up some money for other ventures.
Yeah, the ROI that you can see on retail arbitrage is insane. And not so much in retail arbitrage, but in thrifting and going to garage sales. I've seen some crazy things. Like, I remember one time I went to a garage sale. I think it may have been a state sale or they were moving out of the country. I'm not sure, but it was basically everything but the house for sale. And I'll go in the garage and I see this metal box that everybody's ignoring, and I grab it and I open, and it was a controller for a sprinkler system, and it had a $10 price on it. I'm like, this cannot be $10. So I quickly went into eBay, in the eBay app. I look at the solds, and they were selling for like $330.
Oh,
so I was like, nice. So I grabbed it, and that was a quick flip, and I think I got a best offer for maybe around $250 or so. It wasn't fast, of course, because it took a while, maybe 2 months, 3 months for it to sell. But it sold for like $250, and I spent $10. So the ROI that you can see is really good, as long as you're not putting way too much time, because you definitely have to value your time, like Steve was saying. If not, if you're just picking up, and I made this mistake too. I went to garage sales and started seeing all kinds of things that I can make $10 on this. $5 on this, but they were one-offs. So yeah, I can double my money or triple my money. Well, yeah, but it's $5, and it's like I have to take the time to list it and everything. So that was, I think that's where I went wrong most of the time with retail arbitrage, is that at the beginning I just saw the multiplier, but I didn't figure in how much time it's actually gonna take me. I think I showed you, Jameson, the picture of the garage, literally a garage full of books. So I went in, I saw on eBay local, somebody was selling books by the box. So I was like, okay, he's selling books by the box, $5 a box of books. I was like, so I messaged him. I was like, hey, how many boxes do you have? And he's like, how many do you want? And he sends me a picture, and he had a warehouse. Wow. He was the reseller also, and he had a huge warehouse. And he's like, I've gone. He was going to auctions, storage auctions. Mm-hmm. So he would buy these whole storages, and this was a bookstore that got shut down for some reason, and it was basically all the inventory. So I bought that entire thing. The poor U-Haul truck was asking for forgiveness when I was taking. I gave my brother-in-law, I think it was $100 to help me load those things, and the U-Haul truck was going down I-10. It was crazy, man. Then I get home and I put some pallets in the garage, and I hadn't told my wife how much I was buying. So my wife walks into the garage and like, oh my gosh, where are we gonna park? He's like, not here.
You're not lying either. That thing was like 9 feet tall by 12 feet wide or something. It was crazy.
Literally half a garage full of books, and a 2-car garage, one car, the whole entire space. But I completely underestimated how much time it would take me to process all those books. I'm talking about, must have been over 10,000 books. So I tried for like a week, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And I listed the whole lot, and I flipped it for around 2.5 to 3 times the money. Mm-hmm. So I still doubled my money, but I would have made a lot more money had I invested time, or had I had maybe a team of people doing it. But yeah, those are the kind of fun stories.
Where were you listing the items? Was it on Amazon?
That was at Amazon, yeah.
I hope you were doing FBA and you weren't merchant fulfilling it.
I was doing FBA. I was just, I went online, I bought one of those scanning guns, the scanners. I plugged it in, USB scanner, and I scanning into inventory lab. But I was very, very particular about making sure that they're perfectly described. Like I would go through each one of the pages, making sure that there's no lines or anything. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I was too thorough, and then I bagged. First I bagged each book. Then I bought a heat sealer, and I was heat sealing every single book. So I think I overdid it a lot, because after the fact, I've seen videos of people that just slap the label, the effing SKU on the the effing SKU on the book, and they ship it off that way. So
that's crazy. So I got a question. Earlier, Jamison, you were talking about how you started with just a small amount of money, and now you're on pace. I mean, you're doing 6 figures, right? Yeah. So how does somebody go that's getting into this? How did they get from that level? I mean, were you just putting all of your profits in nonstop, and how were you living if you're doing that? I'm curious how someone does that.
It was really, really tough in the beginning. Because when I started, it was like July of 2014. There wasn't videos, there wasn't podcasts, there wasn't really many books out. There wasn't there wasn't much information on FBA then. Mm-hmm. There was vague videos that would answer 1 out of 100 questions, but there wasn't all this information. It is so easy to start now. So I pretty much trialed and errored everything. I went in all the Facebook groups, all the free ones, tried to get information. Nobody was helpful. Everybody was really rude. Not everybody, but a good portion of people were rude enough where I stopped commenting. I was even to the point where, hey, I'll pay you. Teach me how to do this. Nobody would help. And then I stumbled upon the green room, and it was like $100 to join. And at that time, I didn't even have $100. Like I was like selling on eBay, making maybe $1,000 profit a month, which that's what I was living on. Also, my bills I think were about $600 a month for everything, and then I was living off of like $50 a week food, cutting my own hair, like not Netflix, nothing. Like I was like just biting, like grinding it. And then I found out about FBA through the green room. I put $200 into it. I made the mistake of buying one of those BOLO lists in the beginning. Worst mistake I've ever done. My opinion, most of the BOLO lists aren't worth buying. I think a BOLO list is only as good as the people that are using it. But I guess long story short, I just kept flipping my money. The burn and turn thing. I just thought, I get paid on Monday. All right, I want to have my money spent by Tuesday. I want to have everything shipped out by Wednesday. And I just kept doing that for like a year and a half, just learning and networking and just networking with tons of people. And then I fast forward a year and a half later, I'm going to do $500,000 in sales this year, probably even more. That's without private label. I plan on having private label products before the end of the year. Nice. And the 6-figure profit after that, just from $200 investment.
Do you plan on phasing out of retail arbitrage once you get private label going?
I'm gonna wing it, possibly not fully. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the aspect of it and meeting other hustlers and resellers, because I know that's what most everybody does. But I'll probably slowly phase it out. I probably will never quit it completely, but I'll probably switch over to private label more because I want to be more somewhat passive-ish, as far as making income and stuff.
And that bargain hunting, that going out there and actually finding those gems, that's got to be addicting, right? That's got to be. Even because I think about it, I'm like, well, I'm happy. My revenue streams are really good, but I'm like, that would be kind of exciting to go out there and find something like, I bought this thing for $10, it's worth $100. So
it's definitely a rush. It's definitely a rush.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, my kids hate me because from those times that I was doing retail arbitrage, we would go out in the morning and I'd be like, garage sale, and they would know, oh my gosh. Like we wouldn't be sourcing. I would see a garage sale and I'll pull over. And my wife and kids would be in the car for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And my kids are like, no more garage sale. So yeah, it gets addicting for sure. Cool. So Steve, same question for you, man. Once you get your private label going, is the plan to phase out of arbitrage or also keep it in the mix?
Well, I'm not totally sure what's going to be happening. Right now, my main game plan is I've got quite a few different revenue streams, and I enjoy having multiple revenue streams. I feel like it helps to minimize the risk, and it helps to keep the money flowing in when certain revenue streams kind of go through peaks and valleys and whatnot, just like any business and whatnot. But for the time being, really what I'm doing is I'm using Amazon FBA to help pay bills and maintain my lifestyle and whatnot, and to be able to save money to be able to fund my private label project. So I don't think I'm ever going to phase out of it completely, because like Jamison, I actually really enjoy it. And I also run a membership group as well, which Jamison referred to, the Green Room, which I run alongside with 3 other guys. So we help a lot of people and we teach a lot, and we enjoy interacting with people. So I don't think I'm ever going to phase out of it completely. But kind of like Jamison said, it's good to have that. I hate to use the word passive, right? Because I feel like that word's thrown around way too much, and I don't think anything's ever completely passive until maybe you put enough systems and processes in place. But I'm excited to have another revenue stream, and I'm working on it, the private label on the side. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. I said, listen, it's good to be, doing what you're doing, whether you're selling on eBay or Amazon, but it's always good to have a project on the side that you're building up that could be sustainable for the long term and something you could scale. I think that's really the key with private label, is the scalability. Not to say you can't scale with retail arbitrage and thrifting and whatnot, but it's just a different game, and I think it's a lot easier to scale just based on how the private label game is pretty much put together. So to make a long story short, I don't think I'm ever going to phase out of it within the next few years at least.
Cool. Yeah, and it's so cool to be talking to you, man, because when I was starting with retail arbitrage, you were definitely one of the channels that I subscribed to and learned a lot from. I learned tons from you. So it's so cool that through the podcast you're getting a little bit of value back. So that actually, I mean, what goes around comes around. You're putting so much content out there on your channel. You, Jameson, with the Periscope. It's cool that now we're able to share. Like you said, Jameson, at the beginning there was nobody sharing this stuff, and everybody had to kind of wing it. And now there's so much free information out there. I think a lot of people maybe not realize how lucky they are with all these resources.
There's no excuse anymore. If you wanna learn how to sell on Amazon or do arbitrage or private label, there really is no excuse with the internet. I mean, we literally are like smack in the middle of the information age. Like, it is so easy to get information. The problem is that the challenge that most people have is, all right, there's all this information out here, right? I'm learning from this podcast, from this Facebook group, from this YouTube video. What information actually works? And I feel like it's very easy for people to learn and to absorb information, right? It's so easy to listen. Like, there's people watching right now, they're listening. They're like, I want to get into retail arbitrage. I want to get into private label. Like, this is awesome. But the challenge is taking that information and actually taking action on it. And I something I've dealt with and had a challenge with before. I don't know if you guys have ever had that challenge where you learn something and you're like, okay, well, what do I do?
Yeah, I think I just actually did a video yesterday. We were doing a special project, and one of the big things that I'm seeing out there is and Guy and I talk about this all the time. There's a ton of training material, just like you said, on all these different social media platforms and courses and so forth. But there's, at least with private label, there's a lot of misinformation, okay? Because the stuff that people are teaching is rehashed, right? It's old. You know, it's stuff that's a year old, a year and a half old. And a lot of it, I mean, it works to some extent, but a lot of it doesn't, right? If you follow what they teach, it doesn't really get you anywhere. Is it kind of like that with the training that's out there with retail arbitrage, would you say?
I would say yes and no, but lean more towards no-ish. I don't know. It seems like retail arbitrage is so easy to learn. I don't know anything about private label, so I can't touch on that. But it's like, I guess it's stuff that you learn, like say somebody made a retail arbitrage video a year ago. A lot of that info, if it was decent info then, it should be relevant now. Because I mean, it is simple to a sense. You just point and scan. Obviously, there's a lot that goes in, a little bit more that goes into it. But it is so simple to start. It's so easy to start, but like to scale up, it probably gets a little bit tougher because people, just different aspects of it. But I think the retail arbitrage information is pretty relevant now as it was, a year ago.
Yeah, I think with private label, you just got so many more moving parts. You got to make sure, because you're setting up the listings, you got to make sure the titles and the bullets and the back end keywords and everything looks solid, and the images. And there's certain things that you can do where if you don't do the title just right, you do one little tweak, your sales get cut by 2/3. And you're like, and a lot of people are teaching specific things that, for example, I don't agree with, and then they're wondering why they're only doing 2 sales a week versus where they should be. But so that's good to know, actually, about the RI side. Would you guys say that is it a lot of people on the group, and actually private comments to myself, they asked, do you think it's too crowded out there? Is Amazon getting too crowded, too busy? What are your thoughts on this?
I don't think it's getting too crowded. I do agree that there's a lot more people coming in, especially for the lower barrier types of stuff, like especially like scanning books and stuff. I remember 2 years ago, I would go into bookstores, Savers, Goodwills and stuff, and I would never, ever, ever see anybody scanning a book. Like literally, if I went into 100 thrift stores, I might see 1 or 2 people ever scanning. Just think about it. People are coming in at different times of the day. So really, what are the odds of you bumping into somebody, right? These stores are open for like 15 hours a day. But now I'll go out every single time I'm out, like 90% of the time I see somebody out there scanning. It might just be where I live. I'm from Connecticut. So maybe if you're in like a less populated area, maybe you don't. But I see a lot more people doing the lower barrier types of entry stuff, like scanning books, because it's so easy. So I think there's a lot more people coming into the market. I know for a fact with the books, because I'm a big book seller, it's about 30% of my income on FBA is selling books. There's a lot more sellers, and the prices are getting cut down a lot faster, and there's a lot more sellers doing really, I hate to use the word stupid, but just really doing stupid things because they just don't understand how to price. There's a lot of price wars going on, They've got repricers that their settings are just chopping the price down instantly. And it's like literally you have like a book that's ranked like 10,000. It's selling like, who knows, 10, 20 times a day. I'm just throwing out a random number. I don't know. And they're like, the lowest price is like $40 and they're coming in at like $3 or like $4. And it's like, I just feel like there's a lot more people coming in for the lower, like the easier to get in the game types of deals. I feel like the opportunity, if you're going to be doing the arbitrage, is probably doing like more of the retail arbitrage stuff, doing bundles, creating your own listings, doing things that are a little more difficult. I feel like the easier it is, like if you're just scanning it and sending it in, there's going to be a lot more people coming in. I feel like in the next 2 or 3 years, the competition is going to probably 10 to 20 fold, just because it's too easy and people are looking for ways to make money. But I think there's still tons of money to be made. My sales are still consistent, but just like in any business, right? If you're not willing to change, I mean, look at Blockbuster, right? They weren't willing to change. They just thought their business model was going to work forever. Nothing ever works forever. I don't care what business you're doing. I don't care if it's you're doing eBay or retail arbitrage on Amazon or private label. As you guys know, private label is going to change. Everything changes. Kindle publishing, I was doing that business. Things change all the time. Businesses always change. The key is, can you adapt to it? When things change, when markets change, when competition comes in, are you going to continue to do the same thing? Or are you going to do different things that other people aren't willing to do? So that's my long-winded response to that one.
Yeah. And actually, your response goes hand in hand with kind of what we've been teaching in the podcast. If you're doing private label, you don't want to go for the product that costs $1 or $2 to source, because there's so many more people that will be able to afford that. But if it's a little bit more difficult, if your product cost is around 10, $15, if it's higher, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for people to source a good number of them. So the higher the product cost on private label, probably the better off you're going to be, because there's not going to be that many people that are able to jump onto a similar product. Now there will be, there's always going to be competition, but just the sheer number of competitors out there is going to drop significantly if you're being careful to separate yourself from the masses. There's I don't remember if we said this on a Periscope, Manny, or podcast, but you were saying, yeah, Amazon is crowded, but 99% of the people have no clue what they're doing. They're following that rehash information. So, yeah, so what if it's crowded? Just stay ahead of the pack.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people that are saying, "Oh man, it's getting crazy crowded," and just like Steve said, you have to adjust. You have to change. A year ago, you could come in, you could buy products. You go to China and you buy stuff at 70 cents a piece. Okay, you turn around and you're selling it for $19, and you're just crushing it. You're making a killing. But now there's so many people that go in and they got they're starting with $500. That's their starting capital, and they're like, okay, what can I actually get into and actually get inventory that will last me a little while? If you have $500 and you got to pay for shipping and everything else, it's not like you can go out and buy those $10 products. You got to source those things that are $1 or less. It's going to cost you maybe $1 per unit to get it out here anyway. So that's doubling your cost, right? And by the time they get out here, now there's a ton of people selling this thing. And now we get into what Steve was just talking about. It's a price war to the bottom, because now somebody sees, well, this guy's got it for $19.99. It was cheap. I'll put it for $18. The next guy does it $17, $16, $15. And eventually, there's no profit to be made. You're making $1, $2. You're making nothing, and it just sucks. It's just terrible.
One thing that I really like about private label that is like really attracted me to private label is there's ways that you can differentiate yourself and outdo or beat out the competition. Like, for example, when you're doing retail arbitrage, the only thing you can really do to compete with the next guy is have a lower price. Let's think about it. Yeah, having good feedback is good, and writing a good little description. Yeah, this item's in good condition, fast shipping, that helps. But how can you really compete with the next seller? For example, if I buy a specific textbook, I'm hopping on somebody's listing, right? And there's 10 or 15 other people. How do I differentiate myself from the other person? Yeah, maybe if my book's in better condition, that helps. But really, people are going to go for the lowest price. So it's kind of hard to separate yourself from the crowd. Whereas with private label, the thing I really like about that is you can create your own listing in terms of like having better pictures, You could beat them out with the price. You could beat them out with your entire listing. You could have more reviews. You could add a bundle. You can add an ebook. You could do something to differentiate yourself and compete. You could run PPC. So that's what like gets me excited about private label. I don't know what your thoughts are on about that. And Jamison, I'm interested to hear what you think about it too. But like you can beat out the competition differently versus just having to cut your price down.
I agree 1000%. That's one reason why I'm looking at other avenues to make money is because, like you said, like a year ago, I send in, a toy. That price is either going to go up or probably maintain the same. If I send a toy in now, I could be losing money in 3 days by the time it gets there because there's 10,000 other sellers selling that exact same toy. And then I'm trying to beat them out with volume because, most of these sellers obviously are probably newer, might only have a couple $100 or a couple thousand to spend. So I was trying to beat these guys out in volume. And with these repricer wars going on, it's almost impossible in some items. Like toys is so saturated right now that, it's like almost not worth getting into, but like unless you find the few good items, the few rare items. But I'm in the process of getting into different categories and slowly just trying to find a whole new way to make money at this because I was like, I usually don't shoot out numbers much, but my profits were like, in the six figures every month this year. And this month, my profits like just out of nowhere shot down completely. Like my sales are still up there, but the profits are like, have been shot by like 40% markdown because it's getting so saturated in the toy market. And that's like was my main source of income. So I'm trying to learn new avenues. Like you said, go where the crowd is and stop following the herd kind of thing.
One tip I have real quick is if you're doing arbitrage and you're doing like thrifting and stuff that Jamison and I are doing, one quick tip to kind of get away from the crowd is to get ungated in these categories like clothing and shoes and luggage and watches and sexual wellness and there's quite a few others, grocery, because the masses, if you guys know how the masses operate, the masses will do whatever the easiest thing is. They don't want to go out of their way to get ungated. They don't want to have to go get invoices and send them in. Now, there are going to be a lot of hustlers out there who are willing to do that, but you're going to get away from like the masses for most of the people. So you could go to Google and type in Amazon get ungated and you'll find a link which allows you to get ungated in different categories. Right now, clothing and shoes, they're instantly approving you. You just have to answer like 7 or 8 questions. Luggage, they're instantly approving you. Watches, I don't know if there's any other ones, Jamison. I know you're pretty good at the ungating, but get ungated in these categories. And if you're not sure what ungated means, it means there's certain categories that you're not allowed to sell in unless you get approval from Amazon. So that's a great way to be able to get away from the crowd.
Let me I'm gonna add to that real fast. Even if you don't plan on selling in these categories, still get ungated. Like a year ago, grocery and beauty and personal care, you needed 3 receipts, photos, boom, you get approved in 5 minutes. Now for these same categories, you need invoices, and they make it a pain to get into. So these categories that are easier to get into, like you said, luggage, clothing, shoes, even if you don't plan on selling in them, get in them anyways, because in a year from now, it could be a pain in the butt to get in there, and you might want to sell in those categories. Go to the other categories, like if like I got ungated this past year in Star Wars, I'm ungated in Ink, and those are 2 good categories that not many people are ungated in, and so I'm focusing a lot more on Ink and like Star Wars and other categories that a lot of people aren't in. So go where the people aren't going.
Yeah, Jameson, that's a good point because, for example, Amazon's merch program, when we jumped in there, everybody was getting approved quickly. There was no issues. And so many people jumped on it initially. Now it's difficult for people to actually get approved.
Exactly.
I think, Steve, did you just get approved or are you still waiting? Or?
Yes, I got approved after 2.5 months, baby.
Nice. And it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes forever. I mean, we actually wanted to do we have this cool software and stuff that would actually help people with it and some training to go along with it. Guillermo and I we put it together, and but right now is nobody can get approved for it. So even if they're interested, it's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what you were saying, Steve, a little bit earlier in terms of private label and differentiating. One of the things that people can do is that they can actually, if you're getting products sent in and they're low cost items, okay, and everybody's selling the product, let's say it's $19. Amazon's got their set FBA fees, right? So no matter what, that's kind of a big cost up front. Let's say it's around $4. So whether you're selling a little piece like this or two of them, it's roughly going to be about the same FBA fees because they go by weight and size. So if you can actually go out and get, like, say, 2 or 3 of these things and put them into a bundle and then bring it into Amazon FBA, your cost doesn't go up that much for yourself. The actual manufacturing costs, the shipping costs, it's all going to be coming together. But you can now sell it for, let's say, $29, okay? And you giving, let's say, 3 sets instead of the 1 set that the other guy's giving. They're charging $20. You got 3 of them for 30 or for $29. People will start buying your stuff like crazy, and you make a lot more profit. And that's what we do on one of our products. We just crushed it.
I'm in a similar situation right now. I'm looking at a product. It's a lightweight product. I have a sample coming in, and there's probably about 9 or 10 other sellers who are selling the exact same thing. It's just one physical item, and it's the exact same thing. They all look the same. The listings are all pretty much similar. And I'm trying to think to myself, what can I do to differentiate myself? And there's one other seller who's selling a bundle of 2 of them, and then there's one more seller who has a bundle of that one item with another kind of complementary item. So I'm trying to think to myself, what can I do to differentiate myself? And that's a really good tip. For some reason, they just copy each other and do the same exact thing.
Yeah, now they do. And one of the things you're going to notice in private label, we kind of get upset when someone jumps on our listing. With retail arbitrage, you guys are always competing, so it's a normal thing. But for us, you've got a product, you just sourced it, you brought it into, from, let's say, China to the U.S., and it's on there, and you spend all this time. It's your product page, right? You would think. But then somebody jumps on there, it's called hijacking, essentially. And you're like, man, they're selling my product. They've taken away the buy box, but what they're doing is they're selling something that looks similar to it. You know what I mean? Even though you have your brand maybe stamped on your product, it's a process to actually get them removed off your listing. So that's kind of a pain. That actually just happened to me. When you run out of inventory, it happens super fast, very easy, because you're not there to occupy that space. So I just had that happen yesterday for one day. Somebody jumped on my listing because I ran out. They got re-inventory today. I got new inventory, and I'm back on the listing. But yeah, you'll probably run into those things if you don't constantly have inventory in stock.
Do you have to be registered with the brand registry program? Like, do you have to have your brand registered through the Amazon program in order to get hijackers off of your listing?
No, everybody will teach that. They'll say, hey, if you get brand registry, you're safe from hijackers. It's not the case. Brand registry allows you to more easily get hijackers off once they get on, but you still have to go through the process of ordering the product. Usually you can get them off by setting a cease and desist. But at one point, I had like 3 hijackers in a row that were just waiting to jump on this. And it becomes really painful if the hijackers are, let's say, from China, and they don't want to comply. I mean, there's not a lot you can do. So you have to order the product. And for me, the product was in China. So it took, it's going to take 3 weeks for the product to get out. And then that's when you take photos and you have to go to Amazon and say, look, this is not my product because it doesn't have my logo on it, doesn't have this, it doesn't have that. And then they can remove them. So it's kind of a painful process. It sucks, but that's the way it is. Now, if you get it trademarked, you trademark your product, you got it brand registered, then things become a lot easier. That's a process. Trademark takes forever.
Hijackers are ruthless, man. One of the hijackers, remember, they sold. you bought your own product, and it was completely a different thing. Like, let's say what the bunny scratcher product, and then what we received was a cow groomer, like something completely different, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like
it can reflect that on you, on your account, because, well,
no, it does.
It can reflect back on your product, not on your account.
Yeah, so this is the problem with the way Amazon works, okay? When you create your product page, it's not your product page, it's Amazon's product page, right? You're just essentially leasing it out, right, for your product. So if someone jumps on there and they say they're selling the same thing, and they think that they're ordering a bowling ball, right, and then they get a baseball, and then they post a review saying, look at this bowling ball, it looks so crappy, it's a piece of shit, and blah, 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 right? That actually is permanently on your product page now. Okay, it's not on you as a seller, it's on your product page. And if you finally get those guys kicked off and you're back on there, you have to deal with those terrible reviews.
Oh,
see what I mean?
Holy mackerel, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so the reviews are, they get associated with the product, not with you as a seller. Okay, the ASIN, not with the F and SKU.
I don't even know how you leave like, this is really bad. This is such an amateur question, but I don't even know how people leave a like, how do you leave a feedback on the product versus on the seller? Because I always get feedback, maybe because I'm used to retail arbitrage and I don't have my own listings, but how do you tell the difference between if you're getting the feedback on your seller page versus the product page?
Okay,
Typically
so
on the,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Man.
Oh, I was going to say, and you can jump in. You're usually a little more thorough with some of the answers, but the product reviews are going to show up right on that page. The seller feedback only shows up if someone actually clicks on the seller, and then you can see their seller feedback. But in terms of people leaving seller feedback, it's very rare unless you're actively going out and soliciting it. So you're using some kind of a communication system like Feedback Genius or something like that to actually communicate with the customers and saying, hey, will you leave me some seller feedback? Now, the seller feedback, that is only for you. Okay, so whoever ships it, like if the person gets a product and they're trying to get a refund because it's not what they ordered because someone jumped on your listing, and then they do a seller feedback saying, I tried to deal with the seller and he's just an a-hole and da-da-da-da, that would go, as long as they posted it as seller feedback, that would go on their account, not yours. But that rarely happens. People don't know. The average customer doesn't even know that seller feedback exists. They just know they see product reviews because that's what's available, and they go in and they leave a crappy product review.
Because this is a good tip for the people who are doing the arbitrage and the thrift store stuff. Many times I'll get a negative feedback on my seller account saying like this product stunk or blah, blah, blah. You could get those removed instantly because you can't put a product like so instantly. And I didn't even know this for the longest time. Like I had like 2 or 3 negatives on my account a couple of months ago. And some people in the green room were like, hey, listen, just, contact customer support, say it's a product review, and they'll instantly remove it. And I feel like there's a lot of wounded warriors out there walking around with these negative feedbacks, and it's these product reviews. You could get them removed instantly. So that's really good insight.
If there's any mention of a product or any mention of the shipping process, if you're doing FBA and they're mentioning shipping and handling, then like, hey, this is FBA, and what they do is they kind of cross it off and they say this product was fulfilled by Amazon, something along those lines. So that rating kind of still shows, but I don't think it counts towards your star rating. I mean, it's completely crossed off. And also, if they mention anything about the product, they have an algorithm that you press the button and boom, it's gone.
99% of the time, it goes away in 5 seconds. Yeah. For sure.
So let me ask you a question, kind of switching gears, guys. And maybe if I could get both of you, Jamison and Steve, to answer this question. If you were to start out, let's throw in a small number, like $500. How would you spend it? I'm not looking for a YOLO bolo, but I'm looking for the mindset behind how would you use those $500 to grow a business out of it.
Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. So if I only had $500, I would be looking at investing in cheap items that had a high return on investment. So just given with my knowledge, I'd be spending a lot of time in the thrift store doing a lot of books because there's tons of books that you can pick up for 50 cents, $1, and sell them for $30, $40. So if I only had $500, my goal would be to minimize my risk as much as possible, purchase items that are really cheap, that have a high return on investment, that would allow me to be able to save up more money to invest in maybe riskier types of sourcing like pawn shops and retail arbitrage and whatnot. So I'd be focusing a lot on thrift stores, picking up just random items over there for $1 or $2, mostly books. But there's tons of items at the thrift store. If you're doing eBay, clothing is great in terms of minimizing your risk and having high returns if you're willing to work and put in some sweat and whatnot. Also, I'd be spending a lot of time if I was living in a warmer climate. Right now, I couldn't do it because I'm in Connecticut. Spending a lot of time hitting the garage sales because you could just find ridiculous items over there for $0.25, $1, $5, and turn it into $100, $200 all day long. I remember I was at a garage sale. I think I was in, I don't know where I was, somewhere warm, and I found this Garmin watch brand new in the package, and she wanted like $10, sold for $150. So spending a lot of time in garage sales and thrift stores, Maybe pawn shops a little looking at video games, but it's going to cost me more money. So that's probably the approach I would do if I was doing, the arbitrage.
And would you favor ROI or would you favor rank so it sells faster?
Yeah, that's a really good point right there. I'm glad you mentioned that. I would definitely focus on, like, when I'm doing the books, I'd focus a lot on books that were ranked sub 100,000 because those are going to be moving a lot quicker. Right now, my business model with books is I'll go up to books that are ranked 1 million, 2 million, because I don't mind spending $1 to make 15, 20 bucks 6, 7 months down the road, especially since the fees are so cheap. But that's a really good point, Guillermo. I would definitely focus on faster turning items because I want to get my money out as soon as possible. And also considering that with Amazon, it's going to take at least 2 weeks to get my money. So I want to turn it as quick as possible to get that payment coming out so I could reinvest it.
Cool. Hey, are there products out there when you guys are sourcing things that have incredibly high return rates that have basically, if you were to go into private label, you'd be like, no, I don't want to get into that category because I already have experience doing that stuff with RA.
What are your thoughts, Jamison?
Me personally, I take like the reviews into factor when I'm buying items. Some people totally disagree with that and they don't care. Like if I say I find a toy for $5, it sells for 30, and it's got 100 reviews and they're only 2-star, I might pass on it. Just because I don't want to deal with the return. I don't want to have to deal with the reimbursement. I don't want to have to deal with removing a negative feedback. And all in all, I don't want to sell a crappy product, you know? I generally stay above 3.5-star reviews when I'm buying a product. That's just what I do. Some people totally disagree with that. But, like I said, I don't want to have to go through the hassle of the return and then have to try to get my money back from Amazon for $10. It's not worth it. It's just more of a hassle. So I just go for the quick flips. I'll even go less ROI if it's a quicker flip. But yeah, I definitely think reviews should go into factor for sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jamison, because I came across a retail arbitrage item during Q4 where all the toys are flying off the shelves. I found a toy that was ranked like 600, which means it's selling who knows how many times a day, like 50 times a day. I don't even know. And it had like 90 reviews, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. The rank is there. It's got 90 reviews. It had 1 star. It was like I don't remember what it was, but it had 90 reviews, and every single one was a 1 star. And I'm like,
I know.
Instant return.
I think I know what you're talking about. I passed them.
Target.
And so those bubble things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are horrible. I've never sold any of those things at all. They were good ROI.
Is there a category that, a specific category, whether it's clothing or electronics or something like that, that has a much higher return rate for you guys?
Electronics for
sure. Definitely electronics.
Higher risk, though. Definitely a lot higher risk. Same with private label. I know a lot of the folks out there say stay away from the electronics. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I'm sure the margins are higher with that, just like with supplements. But you've got that risk, and you've got to kind of weigh out the risk in terms of what you're willing to. I don't know what you're willing to risk.
Yeah, I mean, I have a product. I'm one of those guys that says stay away from electronics, and I have a product that's super simple. Literally, it plugs in and it just powers like an LED, right? Essentially, so nothing major. And even with that, I get returns. Every single day I get returns. I do some high volume, but the returns come in. It's like the plug doesn't work, or it's not turning on, and so you've got to deal with that. Versus if it's something that's, let's say, a spatula, it doesn't break. You're going to be able to reduce those returns. So you actually, Steve, you had a pretty cool example on, I think it was one of your Periscope trips where you had a camera that got returned, and then you had a big deal because that was an expensive product, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same example, but I got a return from a camera, and I sent it to him. I bubble wrapped it up. It was in beautiful condition. It was I think it was like a DSLR camera, just a beautiful item. And, you got to spend a lot of time prepping it, and they returned it, and I have it set so I always get my return sent back to me, and it was destroyed. It looked like they chucked it off of a building and so. I don't know. I was going to ask you, Manny, do you have a certain setting on that return, if someone returns a widget or an item that you have, do you get it sent back to you or just destroyed, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So with my private label stuff, I don't have anything recirculate back into inventory. I did initially, and I noticed that I was down to I had a small number of units of something, and there was a defect with these things, and they kept putting it back into inventory. And so the reviews, the negative reviews, were starting to pile up. And I think the same product was going out to the same person over and over. And I'm like, oh man, so I can't do that. So right now, yeah, I have the setting turned off. Stuff can get shipped back to me when I do that, and I can go through everything if I want to at that point. But I look at it as a cost of doing business. You know, if the product's costing me $10, it's not like a DSLR camera, right? If it costs me $10, it's $10. You know, it doesn't work. I try to keep my return rates really low. I try to stay out of categories where the return rates would be really high. And yeah, I don't do it. I know a lot of people do, especially if you're cash strapped, right? And you're just starting out. You're like, man, I want to put these things back in. But ship them out to you. If they look good, send them back.
And Jamison, did you want to jump in? I know I'm going back on your $500 investment. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. I agree a lot with what Steve said. Also, I would I would probably capitalize on the OfferUp app. I think that's an app that's still like new-ish. You know, like obviously it's getting popular, but it's like you could go on there and just point. You know, like in my home city, and then plus with me traveling so much, I can go into a different city every day, look in the OfferUp, boom, all right, got some deals here, da da da, and then there's so much money to be made on OfferUp, and like Craigslist, there's still some good deals out there. I used to do full-time video games, Craigslist to eBay flips. That's kind of saturated with resellers. But yeah, OfferUp, I would totally just be on that every day doing research and like starting with that and then going for the quick flips RA, like Steve said. And I would pretty much piggyback on what Steve said. I would focus on the estate sales, garage sales Friday and Saturday. And then another thing I know a lot of people, this is like one of those things that people say is like, oh, you know, the garage sales are only good from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. After that, don't even bother going. I don't know who made that rule or who set like people that follow that rule. I'll go to 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. sometimes, and I'm still finding the same good deals. At least this is where I'm from in Minnesota. I can go at 3 in the afternoon or 6 in the morning. I'm still going to get the same deals. So I garage sale from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. until the garage sales go. Like once a week, you could kill it. You know, if you only had $500 to start with, you could spend that in one day and probably just kill it and make a couple grand.
It's because it's so cold over there in Minnesota, man. Nobody wants to go out.
Yeah. I remember when I was doing the garage sales, I would get out, like I would be out on the road at 7 a.m. and I would get my best deals 7 a.m. to like 8:30. Then it would slow down, and then towards the end, I get people were kind of losing faith and they were not trying hard. So if I spotted something, I would get a really good deal, or I could bundle up a bunch of stuff. One of the things, techniques, and I don't know if I'm entitled to give a retail arbitrage tip, but one of the things that I used to do was I would never ask for prices on individual stuff. I would just start kind of grabbing the stuff, putting it together, and I would negotiate as a whole. How much for this? And I would show the entire pile of stuff that I put together. Because I always found that people were like, oh, for all that, I don't know, $15? And they're like, are you cool with 10? All right, give me 12. Sweet. You know? And so I felt like every time that I didn't do that, I would end up spending more because people would be like, they would want to get as much for each individual item. Whereas if you hand them a $20 bill, they're happy with it, but you're getting a lot of stuff. Do you guys see something similar?
Yeah, I agree. Also, another good tip too is I like going at the end of the day. I mean, obviously a lot of the good deals are gone, but you can negotiate a lot more towards the end of the day. Because if it's like Saturday, 5 p.m. and they're moving, or they don't want to haul the stuff back in the house, or it's going to the Goodwill after, sometimes they'll even give you away free stuff. Like I've gone to garage sales and got like free Nintendo Wiis and free like Wii Fit boards and video games for free because they were going to the Goodwill the next day. And then also, you know, like when like I actually got this deal the other day, me and Young from the green room were garage selling at like 7. It was our first garage sale. This guy had a headset for PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, and he was asking $30 for it. And I picked it up, and I was just kind of like, you know, like kind of like not like that, but like just kind of like not interested. The price is too high, and I set it back down, and he was like, you know what? He's like, I'll take less, and I was like. And he was like, how about 15? And I was like, will you take 10? He's like, 12. I was like, deal. You know, like just doing little things like that. It works like a good portion of the time. And
didn't
like
you Periscope about that?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched it live. You were
Yeah, it
all
was
excited
awesome.
about it.
Like I didn't even have to negotiate that hard. But sometimes just like picking up the item and putting it back down and showing you're not interested, does work. And I've had really good success when women are like in charge of the garage sale. Usually, like if it's a husband and wife, the woman, the wife is in charge of the
Yeah.
money, obviously, and they're the best ones to negotiate with because they want to get rid of their husband's stuff. So if the husband wants $50 for this GPS, you could probably get it for like way better deal because the wife just wants to get rid of the item. I've had so much success dealing with that, like negotiating with women over men, because the men usually are like have like maybe ego or just want to be tough, so they won't give you a deal. But the wife, always win-win every single time.
If you're at a garage sale and you're negotiating with the woman and you see the husband in the background and she gives you a good deal, get out of there as soon as possible, because I've seen so many fights go down where the husband realizes what just happened and he will snap on her so quick. So you got to get out of there. A handful of times I've been driving away and I'm looking back and I'm like, I might want to call the police. There might be like a domestic or something.
Troublemaker.
That's funny.
And I have one more tip too. When you're negotiating at garage sales, don't throw out the first number. Let them throw out the first number.
Oh,
Always. Whoever throws out the first number loses, in my opinion. Like, I'll give one more quick example. I was at a garage sale at a trailer park, and they had a bunch of like items for like $1 to $5 that were selling for 15 to 40, and I bundled up like 9 or 10 items, and altogether it would have came to like $24. And this was when I was still new, and I was gonna walk up to her and be like, "Hey, will you take 20?" And then at the last second, I was like, "You know what? No, I'll just say, hey, what's the lowest you go?" She's like, "I'll do 9." And in my mind, I was like, yes. But I almost threw out that number of 20 because I would have paid $24 or whatever the asking price was. I would have paid that because like I even got a tent in there that was worth like $60, and that was like break even on everything else. So always let them throw out the first number and then lower whatever they say. Like if they say they have a game for $30, and then you be like, hey, what's the least you'll take for this? I'll take 20. Well, I was going to say 10, but I'll do 15, something like that. And then they're usually like, okay. And then you're good to go, something like that. Just try like the different techniques and it works more times than not, I think.
and that works the same on OfferUp that you mentioned. I had some items listed on OfferUp, and the classic message I would get is, "What's the lowest? What's the lowest? What's the lowest?" So I would always come back with, "Feel free to make me an offer," because I've already set the price. It's the ball's on their court,
Exactly.
So I don't know, feel free to make me an offer, and a lot of people won't, and then I would be like, all right, well, if you're willing, I always make it sound like it's a concession. So if you're willing to meet me at this intersection, and they're likely already closed because they're on OfferUp. So, but if you're willing to meet me here, I'll drop it to, I don't know, like 80% or something like that. But yeah, those little negotiation tactics definitely work.
Guillermo, when you're negotiating with a supplier to source a private label product from China, and you're obviously going to ask them for the PPU, the price per unit. When they throw out a price, say it's $2 per unit, are you using some of the same tactics where you're going to try to negotiate with them, or is it a different parallel when you're looking at negotiating with a supplier to source a product private label versus like a garage sale?
This is definitely a Manny question, but one of the things that I've learned from him is you don't have the final say. You never introduce yourself as the CEO. You're like the buying agent. You are you're lower in the food chain. So if you introduce yourself as somebody that has a superior, then whenever they give you the offer, you're like, okay, I'm trying to make this deal happen, but let me check with my boss, with my CEO. And the CEO is the bad guy that comes back and says, oh, he didn't buy it.
The CEO is a dick. He's always a dick and turns everything down. Always.
He's so cheap.
Denied.
Yeah. But Manny, I'm sure you have a lot to add to this.
Yeah, do they negotiate, Manny?
Yeah, no. So, okay, I always say, you should be talking to at least 3 suppliers, okay, on the same product, if you can, assuming you don't have such a unique product that there's only one supplier. But that way you have price, because sometimes you don't even know where the price should be, right? Because you're buying this stuff from China and you're like, well, I think it's $5, but then you find out someone else offers it to you for $3. So I start negotiating with all of them, and I make sure that my boss turns down everything. They come back and they're like, you know what? I come back and I say, I'm sorry, but your offer was declined. You need to come back with a better offer. We're getting better offers from other suppliers. 100% of the time, no matter, it could be the best offer in the world. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe they just gave us this crazy price. I'm like, decline. And they'll always come back. 100% of the time, they come back with a better price. It might not be a lot, but you know, it's something. And when you're dealing with private label, you might not think that 20 cents is a lot on a unit, right? Something that you're spending $5 on. But when you're dealing with, you know, thousands and maybe even tens of thousands of units over the course of the year, 20 cents starts to add up. And as you start going up in volume, then you can start bringing that price down. But eventually, once you start negotiating with 3 people, you can actually, or 3 suppliers, you start to find kind of where that price range is, assuming they're the exact same product. And then you can start using that against each other, and you could say, well, this one's pretty good. You know, they're like 10 cents lower than the other guys. It's pretty solid.
Do you typically wait until you get the samples to start doing like the negotiations and stuff, or are you already kind of doing that before you get the samples, just like kind of talking with the suppliers at first?
That's a good question. So it depends on if I've gotten any other samples already. But typically, I won't order samples until I know where the price point's going to be roughly. And then once I get the samples, then I can use that as another negotiating bargain, or I can bargain with them a little more, because I can say, you know what, I thought the product was going to have this or that, and it doesn't. So let's work on the price. Or a lot of times they can't work on the price very much, or they say they won't. But what you can do is you can actually have them throw in some extra stuff. You can say, look, I'll make this deal happen, but I want you to put an insert card into my package and put my logo on the products at no cost. Okay? Include it. I don't say at no cost, but I say I'll do the $4 per unit, but it must include this, this, and this. And then they'll come back and go, okay, so now you just, if you were going to do that here, it would have cost you another $1 per unit, but they're doing it for free. I've had complete packaging done for free by doing that little tactic.
Thank you so much, man. That helped a lot, because I'm right at that step right now in my process.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, because like Amazon charges you 20 cents to apply the FNSKU, and a lot of people teach this in courses and things like that. They say when you go to private label, you know, it's a pain to have the stuff brought out to you, and then you to apply the sticker. So just, you know, have Amazon do it. It's only 20 cents. And I always say, well, 20 cents plus another 10 cents for this, another 20 cents for that. It starts to add up. So just talk to your suppliers and just have them put the sticker. You know, you send the PDF file with all your FNSKUs that Amazon gives you, sent to them, and they'll do it for like 3 cents. Or you can have them print it right on your package, your box, for free. Why spend 20 cents? You don't need to.
Thank you.
And I think something that came up in the group a little bit ago is people, first of all, they're concerned about the cost of the samples. So they want to negotiate the cost of the samples a lot, or they feel ripped off because, like, oh my gosh, this is a $3 product and they're charging $45. Like, the cost of the sample is going to be really high, a lot higher than the cost to source the product, because they're not in the retail business. I mean, they don't want people to go and buy retail off of them. So that cost of the sample is going to be really high, and you really don't have to worry so much about negotiating that. Then you, of course, want to negotiate the cost of the goods down, and when you want to try to bump them with the added value, like Manny was saying, the labels, the printing, all of that good stuff. But this lady was asking, so I negotiated and I ordered, let's say, 1,000 units. I may be off with the numbers, 1,000 units. But now, whenever I just place another order for 5,000 units, they're only going down 2 cents. This is ridiculous. So if you've done a good job of negotiating at the beginning, they may not have the margin to go down a whole lot. I don't know if you agree with this, Manny, but I mean, you might get a little bit of better deal with volume, but these guys may be close to their bottom line, and I would say if you start hammering down for too much of a break, quality may suffer, because they may compromise quality to get to a price where they can continue to do business with you.
Yeah, I agree. And I've gotten to a point where with one of my suppliers, you know, we're doing 6 figures with them in terms of us actually paying them, right? So we're one of their top buyers. And I figured, I've got some leverage now. So I sourced some other places, and I found something that was similar, not exactly the same, because this company does this unique for me. And the other company was a little bit cheaper. It's a couple dollars a unit cheaper. And I was spending upwards of $15 per unit for this particular product. And so I went to them and I said, look, I need to get this for $10. And they basically came back and says, that's way below our cost. We just can't do it. And I'm like, well, if you can't do it, I might have to take my business over there. And they were emailing me daily. And they essentially could not go any lower than what they were giving me. They just said, this is our price. We're making almost nothing on it. And they were about to lose me. They weren't really going to lose me, but, they thought they were, and they just wouldn't budge on it. And that was going to be, that would have probably been well into the six-figure type account for them for the year. So sometimes if you negotiate it really strongly initially, like he says, they just won't go down that much more. You can get the freebies thrown in. That's cool. Like if you want to redo your box and you're like, I want a color box that has, my graphics and a picture of the product on there, all this other stuff. And for them, that's an extra, let's say 10 cents or 12 cents or whatever it is it's going to cost them. They're willing to throw that in because they do something with the company that's doing that. But in terms of actually reducing the cost of the product, sometimes you can't do it. Not below where you kind of get.
Awesome tips.
Yeah. I want to know, I know, Guy, you might have a few more questions. And at some point, I guess we all got to get to our regular day jobs here for sourcing stuff and getting products going. But I have a question, a little more fun question. Are there any moments that stand out to you guys in terms of like these incredible moments you're like, oh my God, this just outlandish, nutty things that have happened in your business? Is there anything that stands out?
James, I'm trying to think of something.
Or the worst, was there ever a worse, like something that was just so terrible, you're like, man, it almost crushed you to where you quit? That would be, I guess, a more specific question.
Let's see here. I've had nothing like, I would say my first Amazon shipment that I did was like so hard because there wasn't no info out there. I almost like gave up and like said, F it, Amazon, I'm not doing this Amazon FBA crap. Like I was like, it took me like a week and a half of just nonstop BS, like stupid little mistakes. Like, obviously everyone's done. It was just a big hassle. I've hit like a few roadblocks along the way. I've had like money stolen from me out of my bank account. I had like creditors like lien my bank account once. Like I've lost like well over 10 grand last year to stupid things. And that's when I couldn't afford to lose that type of money. Like they would come in and I had like 3 grand saved up in my bank account I was saving for Q4. And a creditor that I had from like 10 years ago came and they took every dollar and negative my bank account. And that crushed me, absolutely crushed me, because that was every dollar to my name. And, I almost like had no option there. Luckily I made a few moves, like a few like somewhat riskier moves to try to get out of that. And now I'm 100 times off better. So like when bad things do happen, like see where you can learn from those things. Like I handled some of these bad things that happened to me very poorly with a poor attitude. And it took me longer to fix these issues. If I would have had a better attitude, like I didn't see the big picture, like, okay, in 6 months from now, things are going to be 100 times better. I didn't look at that. All I looked at was, F this really sucks. What am I going to do? I just should quit. Just look at it with a better attitude because things will get better. And especially if you handle these bad situations and you learn from them, you're going to be 100 times stronger a couple months down the line. So, just have a good attitude. Like, seriously, that is like so important in this business and any business, even in personal life or whatever you're doing, is just have a really good attitude, even when shitty stuff happens.
Absolutely. I think anybody who's successful that says they've never failed, I just haven't been crushed to the ground. They're not telling the truth. I think we've all been there, right? I can totally relate. I was in a situation when I was starting out my businesses where, the marshals were going to be up to evict me out of my place, if I didn't have payment for the rent on Tuesday. And then I didn't have a car because it had already been repossessed and I was eating top ramen. And it was just, it's one of those scenarios where I guess for me, it just made me hungry. Not the top ramen thing, but I was hungry for business, right?
Ramen, right?
Yeah. No, I was hungry for like, man, I got to hustle. I got to do stuff. And, and you either have it or you don't. People that say, oh, anybody can go out and do this. That's not true. You either have that gene, whatever it is, that entrepreneurship gene, or you don't. And if you got it, you're going to take some hits, you're going to take some blows, and it's those that say, you know what, I'm not quitting. I'm going to turn around like you did, Jamison. Probably you've done it, Steve, probably multiple times as well.
Yep.
You gotta just get back up and keep going.
Exactly. I was going to add to that real quick, like how you said. I know a lot of people that watch my Periscope probably know my background. But 5 years ago, back when I got like fired from Buffalo Wild Wings, I got my eBay account closed. I got evicted from my apartment. I got addicted to prescription pain pills and lost everything. I dropped out of college, got evicted from my apartment, lost everything, got fired from my job, got my eBay account closed. I mean, I had nothing. I was like in debt, thousands of dollars to drug dealers that were looking for me to get their money. And I had nothing. Like I was a complete loser, like straight up just loser. And this was like 5 years ago. And you can, and that's like you said, that this is why I'm so hungry, is because I'm never going back to that life. I'm never going back to not being able to afford to keep the lights on or to pay my rent. That's never going to happen again. And, find out what your why is and why you're doing this, and like find out like where the worst situation in your life is and think about that every day. Not in a sense, dwell on it, like in a sense to make sure you never go back to that place in your life ever again. And it'll just you will have a fire. That's why I work really hard to get where I'm going. And I know where I'm going is because I always think about that every day, to a point almost even where it brings me to tears sometimes, because I'm never going back there ever again. And I'm going to keep on fighting to move forward.
Nice.
I think it's important to mention. Few people mention this, that this business is not for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of courses out there that they want to sell you into the course. They wanna get you to buy and just do it is super easy. But this entrepreneurship, being in business for yourself, is not for everybody. Some people enjoy the safety of the paycheck, and I've heard a number of people complain about their 9 to 5. Like, oh my gosh, I worked 60 hours this week. It's like, lucky, you know, like only 60 hours. I bust my ass. So it's really cool. I mean, we are seeing some really high sales figures, but I can only speak for myself, and I know Manny is also, I mean, working long hours, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same. So I want to kind of ground this, because we've thrown a lot of really big numbers, but this is not like a get rich quick kind of thing. This is not a turnkey business. This is work, guys. I mean, it pays off, but it's work.
Yeah, I think everybody here is hustling and grinding, especially you two. With the retail arbitrage, you have to, right? I mean, if you don't go out there for a week, your business essentially stops for the most part, right?
Yep,
exactly. You gotta keep feeding the beast, as everybody says. You don't feed the beast, you don't get nothing back in return.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's a good point, Guy, and yeah. So, Guy, do you have any other questions that you think the readers? I'm always messing up between what we write on the blog and the podcast and the Periscope, and now this.
Now we need to get the transcript, Manny.
I know. We're actually looking for somebody who can write up all of our transcripts for what we're doing. It's getting to the point where we got to start outsourcing everything,
Yeah. So if you're listening and you write well,
contact us.
Now, no, man, this has been a ton of value. I love these guys, always putting out great stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with us. It really means a lot, and hopefully our listeners, readers, watchers, and all the people that tune into us have gotten a lot of value. Again, if there's any, how do they find out more about Jamison and Steve? Jamison?
You can check me out on Periscope, Jamison Phillippi. That's mainly where I'm at. Periscope and Facebook, same thing, Jamison Phillippi. If you have any questions or whatever, that's about all I got going on right now is Periscope and Facebook.
And how much do you charge for all your golden nuggets that you give out?
Nothing. I don't charge anything.
Nothing, right?
It's all free knowledge. Yep. All the knowledge.
Free value. Awesome, man. And you, Steve?
Yeah, you guys can find me. Probably the best place is YouTube. Just type in Raiken Profit, Raiken Profit, Profit. I got about 700 videos over there. So that could consume your life for a couple months. Periscope, Raiken Profit, Facebook, Instagram, Raiken Profit. Just got done with a Connecticut meetup yesterday. We went hustling with a bunch of people, so I'm not hiding. If you guys want to hang out sometime, I'm usually traveling and whatnot, holding meetups, so we can connect. And I'd love to, share how I do it and help you out as much as possible. But yeah, guys, we definitely appreciate talking to you. It was a ton of fun. Thank you so much for letting us come on your show.
Oh, and let me add one more quick thing. I do travel around the country, pretty much living out of hotels. So if you want to watch me on Periscope and do a meetup as well, I meet up with Periscope people all the time. So yeah, definitely check me out. Hit me up for sure. Thanks for having us, guys. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And also, if anybody's watching this and they are not subscribers or members of the AMPM group, you can go to our podcast website, and that's we talk about generating recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM. Hence the name. So it's ampmpodcast.com, and you can find us on Facebook through that website as well. Guy, any last words?
No, just a big thank you to you guys. It's been fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And hopefully we can repeat this sometime.
I got one last word. Manny, are you really a chick magnet? I'm looking at your shirt right now.
You see that? Look at that.
I love it. Is that merch by Amazon?
I believe it is. I don't know. I got so many shirts. Who knows?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Take care.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that Google Hangout live video with Jamison Phillippi of the Green Room and Manny and Guillermo of the AM/PM podcast. If you want to learn more about Jamison, I'm going to leave his link below to his Periscope. He's been killing it on Periscope, doing a lot of live videos from Walmart's, Targets. He's been sharing bolos and items that he buys and sells on Amazon. Just an awesome guy there and super resourceful. I'm also going to leave some links in descriptions to be able to listen to the podcast over at the AM/PM podcast, which again, I'm not just saying this because they're my friends, but it's been really, really helpful. If you guys don't know, I've been getting into private label, and I found my product and I sourced some samples. I'm kind of going through the whole process. I'm really at the beginner stages right now, but it's been an overwhelming it's just been overwhelming to go through the process, and having that podcast there along with some other resources has just been super, super helpful. So again, guys, check out the AM/PM podcast below. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, share the video, check out Jamison Phillippi on Periscope, check out the AM/PM podcast, and I hope you have a great day. So without further ado, keep on picking and making that money, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.